Welcome to the Get Real Podcast, your high-octane boost of full-on reality therapy for personal, business, and investing success with your host, Ron Phillips, because somebody's got to tell it like it is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Real Podcast. Ron Phillips here. Another day, another crazy, politically driven, nonsensical piece of legislation. And on that happy intro, listen, we have talked about this before on the show, but there is a wave that is real. I think, probably just a handful of years ago, I would have said this was crazy. That no one would have talked about this as openly as our current administration is talking. Let me remind everybody, I am an equal opportunity hater of the political class. So I think I've been, relatively brutal on both sides. I remain a rather equal opportunity hater. Today, however, we're going to talk about something that our illustrious president has suggested, and this is a direct affront to you and to every single property owning citizen in America. This is to quote Joe Biden, this is a big effing deal. And all of us should pay attention. So I'm not trying to be a fearmonger, but I am trying to sound the alarm on something that is gaining traction that needs to be quashed, and this is gaining national. So this has been pocketed all over the country in various forms. In a speech in the last couple of weeks, President Biden unveiled his plan to introduce a rent cap. Now he's introduced this legislation only on quote some landlords, and this is supposed to tackle unaffordable housing, which, as we're going to talk about in just a minute, will do the exact opposite of that. It is true that rents have gone up, house prices have gone up to the point where for many people they're unaffordable. I completely 100% agree with that. How to solve that, however, we're going to wildly disagree with the administration. So let's dig into this just a little bit, and then let's just talk about what this means, what this would mean to the market overall. And let me also state, this is not going to pass, so we don't need to worry about it passing right now. And the reason that I said we need to be vigilant and then we need to be actually watching this stuff is because we need to be as loud, if not louder, than the folks who are putting this nonsense out there. And not only do we have to be loud, but we have to be persuadably loud with real data. And we have to be able to tell the story in a way that everybody can understand it, not just property owners. In addition to that, I think it's important that we as property owners begin to use language that is less of an affront to the people who live in our properties. And I'll let you marinate on that for just a little bit while we dig into this plan. So, of course, this has to go through Congress, which it will never pass right now, thank goodness. But this would put a cap, or this is basically rent control, right? So you can call it, they can call it whatever they want. This is rent control. This is a nationwide trial on rent control. And this proposal is supposed to be aimed at landlords with more than 50 units in their portfolio, which is supposed to be, quote unquote, a corporate or Wall Street type people. But I don't know any Wall Street firm that only has 50 units. I mean, I don't know anybody. They have thousands of units, not 50 units. So this is aimed at you, because if you're listening to this podcast, you have an interest in real estate or you own real estate and you want to grow your portfolio. I would hope you would want to grow your portfolio to as large as you could get it. We have many clients from the RP Capital side who have many more than 50 units, have grown that portfolio over time, have been wise, and they're not corporate folks. So this is not a proposal that aims at corporate folks. This is a direct aim at all property in America. And I am here to tell you that when they start with 50, this is just like taxes. It will never come down from 50, or it'll never go up from 50. It will only come down until everybody is in the same boat as these corporations that they're talking about right now. So what this does is, if currently under the current proposal, they're giving a choice. You either accept the rent cap, which is a 5% increase per year, or you give up your depreciation or tax benefits from your property, which are massive, and they know it. Okay. That's also one of the reasons why people invest in real estate to begin with. So there's two things they're doing here. When you cap the rent at 5%, but you increase, but the government, now this is important, okay? The government increases taxes in some areas 50%, in some areas 100% on properties. How is that fair? Because who absorbs that cost? Right? Now, sometimes you can make sense of expenses like that if you have other things that offset them, like depreciation, for instance. But if you take away the depreciation so that I can actually keep up with my expenses, in many cases, that would eliminate a person from doing that real estate deal. All right. It completely messes up, because, as we've talked about many times, there are 4 returns, not one. And that's one of them. And that is a massive benefit to want to provide housing. And let's be clear, that's what people who own real estate do. They're providing housing for people who either don't want to have housing for themselves, own housing for themselves, or can't own housing for themselves. In either instance, you and I and everyone else who owns real estate for the purposes of rental, we are providing houses. We're providing housing for people. And it's a really, really important thing for America. And when you put rent controls, arbitrary rent controls, now that sounds really good, right? Let's cap it at 5%, because people's income isn't going up fast enough to compensate, right? But this crazy rent appreciation, this has been going on for about the last 3 years, 3.5 years. Well, what's been happening for the last 3 to 3.5 years? There was a problem caused specifically by the government that they now are blaming on corporations, and they're including you and I in that, by the way. And to solve the problem that they created, they put the burden on the backs of the people who are actually providing the housing. It's remarkable. It is absolutely remarkable that they can shift the blame from themselves. The reason that prices are going up, not just on rent, but on everything else, is because of the inflation that they caused by injecting so much capital into the country. That's the truth. Now, rents have risen by about 26% since 2020. That's true. But whose fault is that? Insurance, as we discussed a week or two ago, maybe 3, insurance in many places in the country has doubled. And on apartments, that's a major expense. Even on single family homes, it's a major expense. So what are the quote unquote landlords, or these corporate landlords? What are they supposed to do? Just lose money? You're supposed to just lose money? No, of course not. They do what every other company in America, or anyone who's in business to make a profit, does. They pass along their expenses to the consumer, and the consumer in this particular instance, they're renters, people renting properties. So, what's the root cause? Use another line of the current administration. What's the root cause? Well, the root cause is the inflation. So, if we want to do something about rents, if we want to do something about what it costs for people to live in America, we need to curb the inflation. It's going to be very difficult to do because they've injected too many trillions of dollars into the market. So, what's their solution? Let's penalize the people who are providing the housing. Now, when you do that, you're sharp. You're listening to this podcast. You're a thinker. What's going to happen to the supply of the product that they desire when they implement restrictions that are punitive to the people who are providing the product? Well, it's really simple. You're going to get less of it. You're going to get less of it. In addition to getting less of it, you're going to get a worse supply than you would have had before. It's just common sense. So let's go through some of the reasons why this won't help. Okay. Price controls, rent controls, well, just price controls in general. Just price controls in general. When the government gets involved in controlling prices, it seems appealing at first, but they always backfire on local governments, on the people that they claim that they're going to help. In this particular instance, developers, they're going to be reluctant to build in areas where the government imposes these rent controls. Because why would they? Now, to be fair, the administration has, in this proposed current legislation, they have a carve-out exemption, which of course they live on carve-out exemptions for builders and people who do significant renovations. Okay, and that's fantastic, but they haven't defined what that means. They haven't defined how long that goes, and so it's still up in the air whether that's like the year that you build it, or if it's for 5 years, or if it's for 10 years. But when you're pro formaing out a property that you're getting ready to build or develop or rehab, and you can put this into single family homes, so that if you are a single family home investor, same exact thing applies to you as it does for a developer who's developing 400 units. It's the exact same thing. These price controls in almost every scenario just produce less of a supply. Now, we already have low supply, right? We're short 1.5 million to 2.5 million units, depending on who you ask. That's a lot of units. And if you tell the people who are providing those units that you're going to cap their rent increases over time, whether that's in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, it affects their pro forma. It affects their ability to actually deliver what the government is saying that they desperately need. And so when you get less of something, what happens to the prices? I mean, this is not that difficult. All they're going to do is exacerbate a problem that is currently a problem only because of things that they did. This is a classic case of the solution to the problem coming from the people who created the problem to begin with, and they don't know how to solve the problem, or they wouldn't have put us in the problem in the first place. Now, all of this to be said, this is unconstitutional anyway. It's an infringement upon all of our private property rights. You have private property rights. It's one of the things that makes this country different than all other countries. You have a constitutional right to own private property, do with that property within the bounds of some reasonable regulation whatever you want. It is not reasonable to tell you what you can sell your property for, what you can lease your property for. It is just an infringement upon your rights. Period. End of story. Decades of academic research from across the United States and around the world clearly shows that rent caps, more commonly known as rent control, reduce the supply of available housing and fail to target those renters who need the help most while simultaneously harming other residents and the communities they reside in. Rent caps hurt renters and communities. Period. Hard stop. So this will not pass currently, but we need to be vigilant about this stuff because it is happening all across the country in local and regional, state. There are already areas of the country that have rent controls. Those places it makes no sense to even own those buildings. There's less supply. It makes it the demand is out of control for those buildings. There's not enough, and we already have this problem. Let me suggest that if the government wants to solve for affordable housing, why not incentivize the people who would build affordable housing to do so? Because right now, because of the inflation that they caused, it is not feasible to build without some sort of incentive from the government. It's not profitable to build affordable housing. The land's too expensive, the construction's too expensive, the labor is too expensive. It simply doesn't work. So if we need affordable housing, which I agree we desperately need, my partners and I have tried for the last 2 years to try to figure out how to build it and make it profitable. It's almost impossible. We was just looking at a deal in Memphis yesterday, which is in desperate need of more affordable housing, more good affordable housing, right? Which people would want to live in. Can't do it. It's too expensive. Too expensive. So we appeal to the government, to the local and state government, and say, "Hey, help us build this." There's nothing available to help us build affordable housing. So what's the answer from the federal government? The answer from the federal government is, "Oh, you're trying to build affordable housing that you can't make happen now? Well, then what we're going to do is we're going to make it more difficult for you by capping the rents on current properties. And if you don't like that, we're going to remove the tax incentives, which is the only way that made those properties feasible to do anyway. We're going to remove those. So your increases, our expenses are increasing, and the federal government's answer to that is we're going to cap your income so that you effectively will lose your properties or will not be able to create any extra additional housing." It is the dumbest, most easily debunked policy that I think there is. So that's what's happening, and he did this in a national televised address. This is not something that is surreptitiously trying to be swept in. This is now in our faces. We are going to remove certain private property rights from you. We're going to completely screw up your income producing properties, and we're going to do so in a massive way on a national scale. Be vigilant, people. This is coming to a town, to a state, and trying really hard to bring it to a country near you. So I don't say this to get you guys scared. This will not pass right now. Let me be clear about that. But this is coming. And you and me and everyone else that is in this business needs to be loud. We need to be very clear about what the downside is for the people who are being told that this is going to be a good thing for them. We need to present the other side of the story, and we need to be better in our projection of who we are and what we do and what we provide to the public. And if we do that, I think we can win this. I think we can win this debate. So, if you haven't been in the game, you're going to get in the game. If you have any interest in the game, if you know people in the game, you got to make your voice heard. People, you got to make your voice heard. Now, in the coming weeks, I'm going to do some shorter podcasts. I'm going to do them specifically on real estate. I'm going to make them very clear. I'm going to do a little series on that, and I hope that you guys enjoy them. Love some feedback. If you have things that you would like for us to cover on the podcast, I'd love for you to reach out, invest@rpcinvest.com. If you'd like to get in the game, don't know how, reach out. We can help you. Invest@rpcinvest.com. Love to hear from you. And until next time, get out there and make something happen.
This has been the Get Real Podcast. To subscribe and for more information, including a list of all episodes, go to getrealestatesuccess.com.